You think, and we are told, that maps matter. You think the town with the clever name, or the cool terrain, or the quirky non-player characters. That's the hook. But that's not why your players care. Not really. They care when a place breathes, when it hums low with memory, when it feels like it existed before they got there, and it will keep existing after they leave. They care when the floorboards creak just a little too long. They're not sure why. They care when the place seems to know them before they even speak. They care when it whispers, not with exposition, not with quests, but with silence, with texture, with patterns that show up again 5 sessions later across the world. And suddenly it starts to all make sense. That's when players start to care. That's when you've made a place that actually matters. And this is why they usually fall flat. Most DMs don't build places. They build sets. Scene 1, the tavern. Scene 2, the forest. Scene 3, the dungeon. And it's all backdrop. And backdrops, they don't breathe. They don't push back, and they don't pull players in. Standing in your desert town feels identical to standing in your mountain village. Sure, the climate's different. The accents change, but the emotional weight, it's the same. None. If the world only exists where the players stand, then you're not building a world. You're painting a stage flats for a traveling play. And behind the curtain, there's nothing. This is what I call the stagehand problem. Here's what that looks like. The players walk off stage left. You pull a lever. Act 3 drops into view the forest scene. You slide the trees in. You light the campfire. You dust off the non-player characters. And your players, they don't feel like they're in something. They feel like they're moving through something. That's why no one remembers your towns. That's why they don't say, damn, I'm gonna miss that place. So this is why breathing places matter. A real place, it presses back. It doesn't wait for the players to show up because it already has its own roots. A town remembers who it used to be. A ruin, it grieves what it's lost. A bridge might hum with a tune. No one sings anymore. These aren't props, they're a pressure system. And when players step into them, they don't find content, they find resistance. They feel the world pulling on them. They smell the dried blood no one can explain. They hear a child humming a lullaby they heard once before. Was it in that burned village? Was it in that ruined town? Where was that? And suddenly they're not here for the quest. They're here to find out what this place knows. That's the present week. It's not a stage. It's a living pressure of the world around your players right now. So let's build places that matter, places that breathe, and places that wait. So what is your present weave? Let's be clear. The present weave is not dormant. It's not waiting backstage with a clipboard ready to be wheeled into view. It's already alive. The present weave is the town, the dungeon, the windmill, the ravine, the flooded library. And it's not where the story happens. It is the story because it keeps moving even when the players don't. The present weave is not a quest system. It's a tension system. And that distinction matters more than most game masters or dungeon masters will ever realize. Quests are assignments, like you got in school. There's a clear objective, there's a reward, and there's an endpoint. And once that quest is given, the players are no longer free agents. They're messengers with swords and spells. And they're just collecting 20 blue flowers because that tension is gone, because they already know what needs to be done. But tension's ambient. It's in the walls, in the stares from strangers, in the village that smiles just a little too wide. Tension doesn't need a quest giver, and you definitely don't need a yellow exclamation point mark above their head so they know who to talk to. And it should never wait for that stupid dialogue box. It just exists, quietly, patiently. In a tension system, players don't trigger events. They step into them. Their actions shape things later, sure, but the danger needs to already be there. The cost was already rising. The question isn't what do we do next? It's how long can we survive not doing something? That's the present weave. A world already unraveling. And it's not waiting for permission. It's just waiting for someone to notice. And it doesn't hand them a mission. It hums, low, constant, insistent. It says there's more here. There's always been more here. Are you ready to see it? Well, how do we build that? Well, to start, it's definitely without your players. Each of your places needs some trajectory. We need our places to be going somewhere. And to do this, you have to start with some structure. You start with your pressure points. And those, again, come from your 6 questions. Where did it come from? What does this place want? What threatens it? What is it connected to? How is it changing? Finally, what happens if it wins or loses? So let's break this down with an example. Say you're building a fishing village. It's not a quest hub. It's a place. You need to ask, where did it come from? A natural protective cove developed from storms? A natural trading route? What does it want? To keep the sea quiet, for its residents to be prosperous. What threatens it? A buried relic that's begun to sing again. What is it connected to? The old lighthouse. And it might be haunted. And how is it changing? Well, children have stopped speaking and there's an uneasiness that's settled over the land. What happens if it wins? Silence returns. Good times. What happens if it loses? The sea and the relic will destroy every single soul. That's not just a map. That's now an important place that needs to exist for the story of your world. So let's go through the process to get there. Step 1, build the place as if the players never arrive. You're not designing a set, you're uncovering a confession. You need to stop thinking about what the players will do there and stop writing it like an encounter. And start with this. Why does this place still exist? Ask it like you're asking the land itself. Why wasn't this village abandoned long ago when the mines collapsed? Why is the chapel still locked, even though no one remembers the god? And why do the windows all face west? Now you're not building with bricks, you're building with memory. Picture this. Now sit with the question like you're sitting with an old crone who won't answer you quickly. She's not interested in your plot hooks. She wants to know if you're really listening. She might say, well, the village wasn't supposed to be here, you know. You say, well, why not? She leans in and whispers, because the land here doesn't want us. Now you're getting somewhere. So you respond and go, then why did you stay? And she goes, because the wind changed. It stopped howling one day and the dead, well, they don't want us either. You're not building locations, you're building confessions. Now you're not writing lore, you're writing psychology. What did this place once love? What did it bury? What refuses to stay buried? Maybe the players never come here, and that should be fine. You still build it. Because if they do arrive, the walls will already know their names. I'm not saying to draw the walls. I'm not saying to populate it with children and chickens. I am saying to make the place, because even though I've never been to Paris, I'm pretty sure it exists. Or it is a pretty amazing ruse to keep me thinking it does. Step 2, your quiet overlap. Once your place breathes on its own, you start pulling on the threads. But here's what most DMs get wrong. They treat overlap like a spotlight. This dungeon belongs to the villain. This symbol is tied to the prophecy. This town is where your characters were born. It's too easy. And that's way too loud. And it's also a little gamey. Weaving the threads, you look for overlap in your weaves. By now you should be always looking for that overlap. the world wound, the slow burn, your character weave. These aren't things you add, they're things you notice. So let's do some examples. Let's talk about your world wound. Say your world wound is a dying son, and you don't tell them that here. You show the cornfields growing, leaning in the permanent twilight. You show villagers putting mirrors on the rooftops to reflect the last rays of light. You show the old dog who won't stop barking at the sky. The place is infected with the wound, even if no one talks about it. The slow burn. Say your villain is a villain system that brands criminals with a magical glyphs. Don't say it outright. Let players see one burned into a bench. Let them hear some kids whispering, "Oh, don't touch that, man. It's got the mark." Let the innkeeper suddenly stop talking mid-sentence and glance at a scar on her wrist. You're not revealing the villain. You're letting the players feel its reach. The character weave. One of your players has a missing sister. This town, like so many others, don't know her. But the tavern has a painting of a woman with very similar eyes. A shopkeeper screws up and calls you by her name, and then denies it. And the inn serves a stew that smells something from your player's childhood, but with the spices just a little wrong. Overlap doesn't declare, it haunts. Step 3, layered physicality. You've built the place's memory, you've seeded the overlap, the quiet threads, the tension humming under the floorboards. These give your places weight. But what about the actual place? Now we need to develop an actual husk or frame the players can physically move through. That's deeper than just walls, floors, entrances, exits, something they can navigate, not just imagine. It needs texture. It needs to push back when the players enter. Ask what's underfoot. Slippery moss, cracked tiles, mud that smells wrong. What's missing? No birds, no dust, no light in any second-story window. What still holds warmth? A fireplace that has no logs. Let the environment push back. If the stone is wet, players walk differently. If the air smells like iron, they breathe shallow. If the walls whisper too quietly to hear, they're forced to listen a little bit longer. You're not describing a room, you're haunting it. And when they find that same smell, that same texture, that same phrase in a different place, weeks later, now the thread starts to tighten. The present weave is the map they make. You don't build a railroad, you build importance. You drop a pressure system, each with 6 questions across your world, and the players walk into them one by one. But they're not finding scenes. They're stepping into tension. They're chasing a thread that's already around their throat. And why it matters. If you don't have a present weave, you're faking a world. You're giving them town A, town B, and dungeon C. But if they all feel the same, they're just containers. Your players may not know why it's empty, but they'll feel it. But if every place has pressure, if every place has a memory and a resistance, then suddenly the world is alive. They're not just walking through it, they're walking in it. And guess what? It's also walking back. Your world isn't made of cities. It's made of places that remember. The present weave isn't where the story begins. It's where the world has already been moving. And now the players are caught in its path. So build places that breathe, that bleed, that whisper when no one's speaking. And when your players arrive, they won't just see the town, they'll feel it watching them. And that's how you build that weight that sits on their chest and just crushing them. That's how you make a place matter. And next, what happens when each player starts following their own threads? And what happens when you have 5 different characters walking into 5 different weaves, and all of them start pulling in opposite directions? That's where we go in episode 8. Not with plot hooks and not with party roles. No tanks, no DPS, none of that crap. But with pressure, history, and choice. The present weave is alive. Now it's time to bind the players into it, together. If this helped you see your world just a little differently, like and subscribe, because if you felt the humming beneath the map, then you've already taken your first step. You're not just a dungeon master or a game master. You're a builder of places that breathe, a cartographer of memory, a keeper of pressure, echo, and silence. And down here, beneath the surface, that's what we all are. So if you're ready to dig deeper, if you're not afraid to build places your players may never find, but that will shape them anyway, then welcome to the Warm Below. You're one of us now, one of the fluffy spawn. We haunt our worlds before they ever haunt us back. And the ones who walk through your story, they'll remember the places you buried, even if they never learn their names. Stay sharp, build deep, and we'll see you in the next tunnel.